Welcome to the Project Management Happy Hour. Our aim is to share frank and honest discussion about real-world issues in project management, but do it in a way that's not too dry, though it might get a bit salty sometimes.
Today's show, your project can't possibly be as bad as working for Mr. Beast. Part 2.
All right, Kate, I've been waiting and looking forward to this. Let me recap the scene setter.
Thank you.
So we're Mr. Beast's domain, a custom designed set, no-fly zone somewhere in the outback in Canada, was it?
In Toronto, yes.
In Toronto.
Downs View.
There's 1,000 poor saps that signed up to be on the Chaos Games. Super tight NDAs and 800 staff who I'm sure are totally trained and qualified for running a game like this, because the whole thing is run by a production company that has never, ever, ever done a reality TV show. Have I covered it?
Mm-hmm. And here we go. All right. Here's what happens in Toronto. It's August in 2024. What happens in August, Kim?
Beautiful weather.
Yeah.
Birds are chirping.
Birds are chirping. In that beautiful weather, what type of weather is it?
Hot weather.
There was a 90-degree heat wave.
Oh.
And they turned off the air conditioning during challenges because they didn't want the air conditioning to interfere with the atmosphere.
Oh, you don't want the mics picking up the AC, so you shut it all off. Oh my gosh. How? Then they're dropping like flies?
Here's the thing. Remember, in Toronto, the NDA is much stronger. It's a 500K breach before the show airs, and it's a 100K breach after. So we know that they weren't always using the air conditioning, but due to ongoing lawsuits, I don't know if we know exactly how many people were affected by it. But I can't imagine that being in a 90-degree heat wave with no air conditioning in a poorly constructed temporary building was comfortable. At the very minimum, it produced heat stroke risk.
Yeah. Oh, yuck.
Yeah. But what else happens in summer in other parts of the country that aren't California? What weather pattern do we get?
You can see hot weather. Oh, you get afternoon thunderstorms?
Yeah, rain. Incredible. There was a record-breaking storm on August 17th, and filming officially paused for 36 hours, except it also didn't. Workers were told to keep working with piles of electrical equipment literally submerged underwater. It's a direct quote from a production assistant to Rolling Stone. And it was flooding from the floor up and from the ceiling down. We were bagging up electrical equipment, but it didn't matter. It was pouring everywhere from a different PA.
Oh my gosh.
Rolling Stone reviewed some photos. There were plugged-in cables that were submerged. There's a young man holding cables over his head while standing in at least an inch of water. And my favorite thing is that Rolling Stone referenced the CalArts School of Film and Video on a textbook position that says, using electricity of any kind in wet weather conditions is very dangerous and should not be done.
All right. Safety talk over.
Mm-hmm. And it'd be one thing to say that an unprecedented amount of rain came down. I understand that. We're all dealing with unprecedented levels of weather. But having a schedule that's so tight because you have to meet this 5-month deadline that you can't skip, you never allotted for a weather or another challenging incident, is dangerous for the people that you work with.
I mean, it's prioritizing risk, right? I mean, health and safety, you could be killing people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, regular 110 voltage is dangerous enough, but I'm sure they've got big old power, a lot of power
Probably.
for all those lights and everything. That's major electricity.
Yeah, and whatever else they built for the set. I don't know exactly what their sets needed. So, yeah. On top of that, I haven't looked a lot into this, but they hired a payroll vendor called Revolution Entertainment Services, and there are people reporting that they never received a correct paycheck for the entire show. So we know that Mr. Beast's production company treats contestants bad, but he also is treating his crew badly, working through heat stroke risk, working through literal electrocution risk, and then not paying them accurately. And Rolling Stone reviewed pay stubs for one crew member who worked more than 80 hours in 1 week, which also would be subject to some sort of labor oversight. And there were several people who said they were paid late or incorrectly.
Yeah, imagine that guy pouring down rain. He's in ankle deep water, holding a 240 volt line over his head, thinking, well, at least I'm getting paid for this.
Yep. But he's not.
He's not. He's not.
He's not.
Wow. Okay. I mean, that's the basics, health and safety, and just paying people for showing up.
Ah.
And so maybe this is a question for later, but this Mr. Beast guy, I mean, my limited knowledge of him is that he tries to be a good do-gooder, right? He's doing a lot of charity things. He's giving people, Lamborghinis and stuff. He does a lot of giveaways. I mean, how do you square that, if you're Mr. Beast with, treating people like this, risking their health and safety, sleeping in excrement.
I feel like you just gave me the perfect segue into the next thing I want to talk about, which is on August 22nd, Jimmy sends a video to all crew. He's standing on the central tower of the Beast City set, and he says, I'm seeing how hard everyone's working, and I just want you to know it means the world to me what you guys are doing to help pull off the show. Once we get the contestants down to around 100, things should go a lot easier. I know the last day or two has been pretty long. And then that's August 22nd. Around 2-ish weeks later, September 5th, the production office emails the crew reminding that, quote, any violations of the confidentiality policy contained in your deal memos will be strictly enforced. And then on September 11th, a 6x6 piece of the Central Tower's exterior falls on a crew member during set teardown. Quote, it just effing nailed the dude as he was walking by underneath and not under a part of the tower that they were actively working on at the time. He was on the ground until the ambulance showed up. So the crew member was hospitalized. Ontario's Ministry of Labor opened an investigation in December. I didn't follow this all the way through because it was a little tough to find between the NDAs and the amount of Wrangler turnover prevented them from being able to get a clear read on who's who, especially whenever you think about how payroll wasn't accurate all the time, even just keeping track of who wasn't in and out of there. So I don't know if everybody has received their due compensation for the things that they experienced while being on set.
Oh, that's scary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I guess, you're trying to build this stuff really quick and inevitably quality fails and health and safety suffers. Man.
Well, there's a reason why unions exist, because none of the people behind the camera necessarily matter as much as what is produced. And it also, even if people are behind the camera and on screen, really all that matters is the final product. So having no union support here, those people don't have nearly the avenues if it had been a unionized production.
Yeah, no wonder they said don't work here.
Yep.
I think I followed that really up.
So aside from things that happened to the crew, we also know about one of the challenges that they filmed, which was called Sacrifice Row. So there were supposed to be 900 contestants on pedestals in 12 rows. If you press a button to eliminate yourself and your row is safe, the last 3 rows to act are eliminated, and they were going to knock out 252 contestants. And this game was originally supposed to take 10 minutes. Here's the thing. Mr. Beast thinks that people are greedy and doesn't understand that when you put human beings together, they form connection because we're social creatures. Mr. Beast is Jimmy Donaldson is probably a psychopath. It's really what it is. He's like, why aren't you arguing over money? It's because I like the people I'm here with. Because if we won as a group, we could split it and that would work better. Literally the same dynamics that you see come up in Squid Games come up in real life, where you're like, no, I care about you. I want to see you succeed. People really are not out to undermine each other. But with this game, so all that to say that a lot of the games that he comes up with are people are just going to fight over money, but that's not usually what happens. And I hear that season 2 suffered from a lot of that because that's just not how people work. So the game was scheduled to last for 10 minutes, but it only lasted 12 seconds. Because what happened, according to the contestants, was that the rules appeared on a monitor in the set hours before the game. So you would have had time to do what you were just doing in your mind. You were like, all right, there's 900, you press the button, you eliminate, you're safe. Last 3 rows of act are eliminated. So teams that saw the rules had time to strategize, and teams that didn't were eliminated basically by a technicality. And an August 31st email from the Beast Games team said, we had a third-party review. The technical difficulty did not create an unfair advantage to any team. However, the eliminated contestants refused to leave Toronto for over 5 days, and they formed a Discord group called the Beastlings. And then on November 6th, the eliminated group received a Google form offering priority consideration for upcoming rules in Mr. Beast content in exchange for not joining a class action lawsuit for 45 days after submitting.
I ticked the box. There was legal action because they felt like they were not treated fairly, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm doing pretty good.
Yes. So they're like absolute chaos. But the thing that I think I'm actually like really interested in is, as I watch this, right? Like, because here's the thing. The way that the project was received, right? So that Beast Games Season 1 launches on December 19th, 2024. And it is received. And critics tear the show apart. It receives a 20% on Rotten Tomatoes. It receives a 3.8 on Metacritic. It receives a 2 out of 10 from IGN. It's called things like an unfortunate look into the human condition that reduces everyone to barbaric beast games, a bust, painful, a shallow series, right? However, the Rotten Tomatoes audience, their popcorn meter, rates it at 87%. It is also, Amazon touts it to be the most watched show premiere they've ever had. Amazon finds this to be a gigantic success. It is immediately given a season 2 and season 3.
What?
Yes. And this is why I want to talk about this, because you're sitting here in your projects and you're thinking, man, my project is failing because you didn't have daily plans, you didn't have daily stand-ups, you didn't have a risk management, you didn't have a risk log, but the outcome of the project is what matters to your sponsor. Jimmy Donaldson got a show that was very successful on Amazon, despite millions of dollars in lawsuits, despite scathing things said by the folks that have been in here, and despite, honestly, the show being poorly received by critics, immediately renewed for season 2 and season 3. That is a success for him. And I want to talk about how you need to write your post-mortem, your own story about your projects, because something that is even as nasty and as messy as this is, in fact, an exceptional success.
What a twist. Wow. Okay, what do you got?
The critics say, true, there is something weirdly compelling about Beast Games, but it is compelling in the same way that picking a scab is. It exists solely to show us the worst of the human condition as obnoxiously as possible. From Stuart Heritage in The Guardian. Another reviewer says, a mostly unenjoyable and often disagreeable gamification of late-era capitalism. The gameplay is dull, and the philosophy, bilious. From Craig Mathieson in The Age. Another quote, a demonstration of how money alone can't buy truly entertaining television, from J. Kelly Enstruck in Globe and Mail. And lastly, Beast Games is as if an over-the-top 10-year-old boy had seen Squid Game and thought, I can do better, from Randy Meeks in Espinoff. But here's the thing. Mr. Beast comes back and says, it's sad that one person who doesn't like me can just label something 1,000 people poured their lives into a 2 out of 10. At the end of the day, I'm making the show to entertain the audience, not 8 random critics.
That's true. And to have your show or your project labeled fascinating, like picking a scab, is there's something to that, I guess.
Chef's kiss. So good. So even when your projects go absolutely off the rails and are in many ways objectively a failure, you can turn them into a subjective success.
I mean, is that a real success? Not a subjective. That's a real success. The sponsor got exactly what they aimed for. His stakeholders and Amazon, sounds like they got what they asked for.
Yeah.
I'm sure that dude with the fecal covered sleeping bag didn't get what he asked for, but
does not feel good. Yeah. And I'm not here to say that I think all projects should be run like this. I want to be super clear here. But sometimes we end up in situations where our sponsors are being absolutely insane. And here are some other things about Mr. Beast that I feel like I need to say to like create more context about him, because his A Diary of a CEO interview is wild. So one of the things he says in his Diary of a CEO interview, the host asks him, what's the worst thing an employee can do? Something like that. And Jimmy answers, be mediocre. He hates C players for bringing down A players. He's like, you want to surround yourself with A players. But the people in the middle, those are the worst because they're mediocre. To which I am like, teams require a variety of people in them, and not everybody is good at everything. But he finds anybody who isn't what he perceives to be an A player to be bad. to work with. But this is a 26-year-old who, in this production that he had, where people got hurt or sick or injured, didn't have access to their medication, that incurred lawsuits where he lost millions of dollars, he still believes he's surrounded by A players. To which I say, if you were surrounded by A players, would this many bad things happen?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Right? He adamantly resists process. One of the things he says on the interview is he says, I'm 26. This is my first real business. Every employee milestone that we've hit, that's my first time getting there. And he says that the most annoying part is ignorance. He's like, I should have brought in people from a larger company sooner, but that's how you learn. You got to make 10,000 mistakes. To which I say, you don't have to make 10,000 mistakes. You could just make a couple and then learn to do better. And I think it's one of those things where I don't think anybody necessarily, this is probably spicy, but it's like Mr. Beast knew what he was doing on YouTube for many, many years. So I don't think that he should have brought in anybody to help him make his content. As long as that was succeeding, I think that's fine. But there are people who are better than you at other things. And he does not really want to bring them in. He only recently brought in a new C-suite. Jeff Hausenbold, who came from Shutterfly, is now the new CEO. And they're about to get into fintech because they acquired a company called Step, or maybe they're already there. They're also making an investment into Ethereum. They're trying to grow this company, right? But I think the picture that I'm trying to paint is that there are very successful people who do not think about project work like it's a project. They are not capable of thinking about how to walk through a project. You, project manager, are able to hear, I want to shoot in Vegas and Toronto, or Vegas in a second location, and just start to think through how that would work, about the things you need to get up in Vegas, how you're going to transport people, you need some help on the ground, what's the set going to look like. There's a lot of plans that need to go into that. That is not something that the sponsors of these projects think about. They have the money and they say, this should just happen. And so somebody like Jimmy, who's not yet in his 30s, where I think you actually start to learn some wisdom, is saying the things out loud that your sponsors are genuinely still thinking, but not saying out loud anymore because wisdom has taught them not to say those things anymore. But they're also thinking, I have $1 million. My project should go off just fine. Why are you telling me it'd be different? Why are you worried about risks? We've always figured everything out, because in Jimmy's mind, he's rewritten everything that he's done as a success, even though there are objective failures in it. And I think it's an important point to take home about thinking about your sponsors and how you talk to them and why they think PMs can be such fuddy-duddies, bringing up risks and issues, because we're like, no, if we think this through, everything will go off much more easily. We'll have a nicer time. We'll have less problems. But they think you're bringing a problem that does not even exist yet, because they don't have the foresight to even imagine that problems could happen.
Yeah, it's like when you say he wants A players, it makes me wonder, what does he consider an A player? Is that somebody who is an enabler for him and his things he wants to do?
Probably.
I mean, how would he define that?
Yeah, we know that there's a couple people, I don't know their names, but he's got a group of bros that are on his channel all the time. And I know that season 2 of Beast Games spends a lot of time focused on these guy friends of his, but there's nothing special about these guys, I don't think. I don't think these are the most brilliant men in the industry. I also don't think they're bad people, to be clear, either. But they're the people he likes being around. In the same way that we'll see other people be successful in other movies and production, Judd Apatow has people that he likes to bring around with him. I enjoy other productions. There's a horror director on Netflix who did, I'm forgetting his name, but he did Bly Manor and the Edgar Allan Poe one. But he has a group of actors he always brings around with him. And they may not be the best actors in the world, but they are the actors that he likes to work with. And so he may see them all as A players and that they really can bring his vision to life, but I don't think that they are necessarily objectively A players. I do think it's about having people around that make you feel comfortable. It was called the PayPal Mafia for a while, with Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and whoever else was in it. And they clearly made each other successful, whether or not they're A players, which I currently don't think that those, they would not be A players today in what they did, 20 years ago,
Yeah. So Kate, I'm just kind of curious. Remember, he engaged this secondary production company. They've never done this. I'm sure the owners of production companies says, Mr. Beast wants to use us. Heck yeah, whatever you want, we'll be there, Mr. Beast. And so great opportunity for them to break in a new space. So what if you're the project manager working in that production company and they say, hey, this could make or break us, Kate? How do you handle that?
One thing I would try to take really seriously is how little anybody knows about how it's going to go. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Right? If somebody's like, oh man, what an opportunity. We could have like Mr. Beast on our resume. We could have so-and-so on our resume. So, and I've actually coached somebody who's had a client like this, where the company was like, this client is so important, even though they don't make us a bunch of money, but we have to have them. And this client is a gigantic whiny baby and has a lot of feedback, but a broken clock is right twice a day. So sometimes does have great feedback, but overall is often snide, rude, and condescending. And I advised her, as I would advise anybody here, push that crap back up to your boss. The company decided that this was a really important thing to do. If it's important for the company, it's not necessarily important to you. You want to do your job well, but just if it's important to the company, every single time something escalates, bring them in. If the business decided to make it a priority, make them treat it like it's a priority. Whenever the insane client gets upset or over budget or anything like that, make it their problem. Say, oh, looks like, I've done all these things to make this stuff happen. Client's unhappy. Do we want to budget? Oh, because it's always a budget overrun. Want to budget overrun again? Or do we want to check back in? How do you want to handle this? Like, it is unfair for a company to make a business decision on a risk like that and then put you in charge of all the risk. Continually push it back up to the company. But act like you are just as curious and excited about it as they are. Wow, learning a lot about running a reality show instead of drama series. Seems like for reality shows, we're going to need these things. How do we want to go about doing that is how I would approach it with a leadership company like that. Got to make it their problem.
Yeah, it feels like we've been talking a lot about this lately, is a lot of times management will make their problems your problems and let you just, hopefully you'll just go solve it or at least not make it their problem anymore. And a lot of times the right answer is to bring it up and make it theirs again.
So here's the things that I think you could apply from what we talked about today. Anytime there's going to be a scale jump, it's going to be a different project than you've ever done before.
Yeah.
If you've managed a $10,000 project, now you're on a $100,000 project, super different. If you're on a $100,000 project, now you're on $1 million project, super different. If it's a 10-person team, now it's a 500-person team, super different. So hire for the project you're doing, not the one that you've done.
Yeah. More scale, more problems.
Yes, very much. Watch out for fixes that move the problem instead of solving it.
Ooh.
When they were in Vegas, many problems were had, right? And then they go to Toronto, and it is easy for a sponsor to say, it'll be different because we'll be in Toronto. And it's like, how specifically is it going to be different? Right? How are we specifically going to change things in this new location? And you may not be able to ask that question in that way, but I will be looking for ways to identify how it will be different. And between Vegas and Toronto, one easy thing to be like, what's the bathroom situation going to be like in Toronto? We're feeling like maybe 50 porta potties instead of 12. And if they're like, yeah, we are, it's like, that sounds great. Looking forward to it, right? So we got to look for things that are actually solving the problem. Watch out for things that move it rather than solve it.
Yeah.
And the biggest one that I cannot overstate is write your own post-mortem. Write the story of how your project went. And because if you don't, somebody else will write their version of the record.
Oh, yeah.
Jimmy Donaldson is out here being like, I've had the most successful show on Amazon. I'm going to have 3 seasons of it. And in general, season 2 has been received better than season 1. He is doing some learning. Do we think he's doing the learning that we would have loved to see based off of people who've successfully done these things? The biggest one being there is a Survivor Beast Games crossover episode in season 2. It is generally agreed to be the best episode in season 2 because the Survivor team has been doing this for 20 years and knows how to run a competitive reality show and knows how to set things up, probably runs things with call sheets, probably people know where they're going to be for the day, probably is familiar with medical care, right? Survivor's been doing this for decades. So there are ways he's improving, but if you, the project manager, wrote the story of this or the production manager of this, you would be writing it as a gigantic failure in a lot of ways, except that you have this evidence that it did in fact succeed. Look for where you succeed and make that part of your postmortem story.
Oh, yeah. Really good tip. Because he's got such a great story despite all the other terrible things. It's like a big twist. He can declare victory from Amazon perspective, from a ratings perspective. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing too is, he's on Diary of a CEO and he's saying things like, gotta make 10,000 mistakes. And nobody is here being like, and lately people have been seagulling on Mr. Beast because these things are coming forward, but he is owning his own narrative. So he's able to push back against that. And, he's in his 20s. So he's saying things like, really lame that one person doesn't like me. And I actually worked with 1,000 people who did a good job on stuff. Like Mr. Beast had to have his mom meet the new CEO of his company. Like he's still really young in how he's handling things. And so I don't want to overly be rude to Mr. Beast. And he has done philanthropic things. I think that's amazing. But he's owning that story and he gets to drive that narrative. And it is investigative journalism that is, and because he has money and power, right? It's investigative journalism that's getting out these other stories of these folks, and people are having to sue in order to get what they rightfully deserve from the things that they've experienced. So, these people are trying to write their narrative, but the person in power gets to write most of it. So any story can stick as long as you are consistent and enough people are repeating it. And so you can do that for your projects too.
So based on this, how do we assess Mr. Beast as a sponsor? I mean, is he a hero? Is he villain? Is he just...
I think he's a villainous sponsor.
Yeah.
I do. But I think he's a specific type of villain. I have a friend who's very into DC Comics, and he's told me about a villain that exists there. His name is Galactus. Formerly a mortal man, he is a cosmic entity who consumes planets to sustain his life force. So he needs to eat worlds in order to live. And I think what happens is he shows up to Earth and the Justice League is like, hey, dude, it'd be so great if you didn't eat Earth. What if we found you a different planet to eat? And he's like, okay, and goes and eats this other planet. But the thing about Galactus is he just needs to eat planets. It's the way that he works. He can't live off something else. He needs to eat planets. And so it's not even villainous. It's the way that he is. I feel like Mr. Beast does not know another way to be. He has been a way that has served him. He's been doing his own version of eating planets his whole career, where he's been a successful YouTuber for over a decade. So why would he think he needs to be different? Every piece of evidence he has is that this is sustaining for him. He wasted millions of dollars on this show. That's his own quote, right? He says, I lose money all the time. To him, money probably just comes to him. He just gets it. You know what I mean? So it's not that I think he's out here truthfully trying to ruin people's lives. There are people who are like that and they suck. I think Mr. Beast is the type of person where if you got along with him, it would be amazing. And as soon as you didn't, it would be horrible. And trying to make him work any other way than in chaos wouldn't serve you because he only knows chaos. He only knows how to eat worlds.
I think that's a really keen insight for any executive because the person they are and the things that they do, that got them to where they are. And so expecting them to change is maybe not really realistic, whether they're the CIO or VP of operations, whatever they did got them to that level in their career. And so expecting them to change because you think it's the right thing or the wrong thing, be a high expectation to have.
Exactly, right? The conversation with Galactus is never going to be, hey, it's really not cool to eat planets. Let's just not do that. Because he only knows how to eat planets. And not just only knows how, he has to. It is how he lives. He can't not eat planets. The question instead is, where can we direct that planet-eating energy, my guy? We're gentle parenting Galactus. I know you got to eat. You can't eat Earth. I can offer you Pluto or Jupiter. Who do you want to eat? Pluto or Jupiter? You can't eat Earth. Only Pluto or Jupiter. But that's what I would do if I had to work with Mr. Beast. And I would probably look at things in a way that's like, hey, if I imagine that he matched the $100 million budget that Amazon pledged, I think I'd be like, all right, bud. But I'd call him Bud because it'd be hard not to. So you probably wouldn't want to work with me. But I'd be, all right, bud. We got this $100 million budget. I did some projections. We're going to be $50 million over based off what you want to do, which seems like a reasonable estimate in overage based off of what he's like. And says, we're going to be $50 million over. Does that matter to you? Is that okay? And he's like, yeah, it's fine. They'd be like, cool. And I would move on. I wouldn't worry that we're going to go $50 million over a $100 million budget because he does not care about it. If I said that and he was like, oh no, this can't be any higher than 120. I got other things I'm trying to do. It's like, okay, cool. If you want this to be 120, probably in that moment, I would be like, we got to cut something. I don't know what then. So I'll come back with an option because he would be the type of person where, he changes his mind so frequently. The advice that we give about go away, come back, have this reasonable proposal for solutions does not work with people like this. They have crazy ADHD and they want to just like make gut decisions in the moment. And so you could even be like, we need to cut something. And he'd be like, well, what's the most expensive thing? And you could say, oh, the Survivor crossover episode. Like, no, we need that. Okay, second most expensive is we're going to do like an alligator shoot. I do not know what they did on Beast Games. And that's costing us at least $5 million. And he'd be like, yeah, well, like, can we do that with like ping pong balls instead? Perfect. Yes, we can. You know what I mean? Like that is the level that he's working at. And I would not work any harder than that with him, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And he's also going to pay you the big bucks to do these things. So like, I've lived that life. I'm not living it anymore is how I feel about it. But that's what I think about what he'd be like to work with. He'd be very challenging. You'd have no work-life balance. I think the only way you'd get away would be like, I'm going to be off for a month because we're not doing anything after the shoot, and you would be gone. Like that's how you have to manage your time. And obviously I've done it. And so that's how I would handle him.
That's good.
So this is me being like, I don't love disaster projects, but I might love disaster sponsors.
That was pretty juicy, man. I mean, in some cases, literally juicy, really gross,
really disgusting. Yeah. So I'm elated to bring you disaster sponsor stories. I would love to hear more of your disaster project stories if you want to hear my disaster sponsor stories.
Great. I'll go next. I've got a great project disaster. You're going to love it almost as much as the last one. So I'll come up with one for you. I got one for you.
Well, as mentioned earlier, a gigantic thanks to some of the things that inspired and were heavily referenced as we went through this episode. Thank you to the YouTube channel Folding Ideas and the video Why Was I Invited to Be Studios, which was performed and written by Dan Olson and Nathan Landau. Thank you again to Mingson Lau, part of the KSNV staff, and the article Las Vegas staff say Mr. Beast should be blacklisted, cite OSHA, medics set for failure. And thank you to Stephen Essark and his article that he posted in Rolling Stone, a Fire Fest feeling inside the chaos of Mr. Beast's new reality show. I really appreciate the work that all of these teams of writers have done to get us to the information today. I would not have been able to do this episode without their help. So thank you so much for your work you're doing out in the world. Amazing. Well, to having sane, reasonable project sponsors. Cheers.
Cheers.
And that's our show. Thanks for listening. If you liked our show, please leave a review and a comment on iTunes or wherever you get our podcast. Your review really does mean a lot. And if you want to check out our membership site and all of our cool content there, you can check that out at pmhappyhour.com/membership. If you want to talk to us directly about project management, PM consulting, training, or whatever, our contact info is on our website under About Your Hosts, or you can just hit us up on our Facebook site at PM Happy Hour. You'll find we're really pretty easy to get a hold of there. And that's it for today. Good luck with your projects, and we hope to catch you again at the next PM Happy Hour. Cheers.